Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Unplugged Woodworkers podcast. So what have I been up to? I did actually manage to get another video knocked out about basically making wedges. I showed how I made wedges. I went over a few of the things I do with the wedges, specifically the wooden hole fast and the wooden tail vise section, or the tail fast as I've started calling it. So I did cover that a little bit, not in great deal, but enough for people to grasp what the ideas are about. Obviously I did finish up on a table that got packed which was fun. And I did make a start on another table, but unfortunately it's time for me to go back to work so the table's going to have to wait. So what impressed me, so this was actually off a couple of weeks ago and I forgot to mention it. It's a pretty little cool thing, and this is the first time I've seen it, and it is by Thompson Woodworks. I'm going to leave a description, I'm going to leave a link in the description if you want to go and check it out. And it's basically just a pencil dispenser, but it's a super cool pencil dispenser. As you know, I do most of my woodworking outside, but if I had a dedicated kind of shop or or a dedicated shed, I kind of have got a dedicated shed, but it's not big enough. I wouldn't really class it as like a shop, if you like. But if I did, I'd have this thing on. And basically, you pull a lever down, the pencil pops up, pointing to the sky vertically, and it slides down into electronic pencil sharpener, sharpens itself, and basically you just pull the pencil out. It's a really simple design, but it's very cool at the same time. So if you're into sort of little like woodworking gizmo things, I would definitely check it out. It's well worth it. So I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go and check that out. So today I'm going to talk about the bench accessories. This is kind of more just the pegs and wedges. I'm just going to go over a few things what I've found out like working with the pegs and the wedges. I'm not going to go into great detail, but I am going to go over just a few of the fundamental things, or at least what I think are fundamental. Because I do get questions of people, asking whatever, how to do this, how to do that, what I would recommend, so on and so forth. So I just thought these were a few things, what I've kind of picked up, and that might help some people out that are just starting the journey in viceless woodworking, or that's just a little bit curious maybe. So I'm going to start off with the pegs. So I have made quite a few pegs, although I have had the original ones for a very long time. Ironically, I've just snapped two of them, which I'm kind of going to go over a little bit later. So that wasn't necessarily because of damage to the wood or anything else. As I said, I'm going to go over them. So I think some things to consider with the pegs, or at least what I kind of do with them when I make a peg. I'll actually put a slight little taper on the peg, and this will be a taper at both ends. So what this allows us to do is when you insert the peg into a dog hole, one side of the dog will actually go down quite low, so it might only be sticking up maybe 2 inches, depending on how much of a taper you put on it. And then when you turn the peg around, you might have somewhere in the region of maybe, however many inches. I'm going to, for argument's sake, you might have like 4 inches, 4 to 5 inches sticking up. So if you do it correctly, and I would advise this, there should be a pretty decent fit, so they will support the work. I've been doing this, I think, pretty much from day one. Obviously, I think I've seen a video of, I think it was Chris Schwartz, and he was demonstrating them, and the actual peg pushed all the way through. So as soon as I seen the peg push all the way through, I naturally thought just put a little bit of a taper on it so it can go all the way through. I think what Chris's trouble was, I think just the wood had just dried out. I think that was the issue. Obviously, so the peg had actually just dried out and it had shrunk, and that's why it was going through the hole. But my first seeing it, that's what I thought straight away. So obviously a byproduct of that was I tapered it and I couldn't get the other side in, so I had to taper the other side. And once I tapered the other side, that was a byproduct. So I had like an end where it would stick up like 4 to 5 inches, whatever. And then once I turned the peg around, it would go down and be protruding maybe like 2 inches, whatever. So as I said, that's been from day one. That's a really good thing. Something else that a lot of people, some people will get it, some people won't, some people will think it's necessary, some people won't. Put a chamfer at either end of the pegs, around the edge of the peg. So there is occasion where I will hit the pegs with a mallet. I might have to force the pegs down. So as I said, it's always better to put a bit of a chamfer around, and this just aids the peg, it basically guides the peg in, really. And having said that, though, I do advise to put a chamfer on the dog holes as well. It just makes things fit together a lot easier. While I'm on with the compression, that's one good thing with using wooden pegs and dogs rather than using metal pegs. Obviously, if this is too tight of a fit, I can actually compress these down. Obviously they are going to compress, but given time, that compression will go away. If it doesn't, you can simply just wet these and the peg will swell and dry out, and it should go back to its original size once all the drying's kind of happened, sort of thing. Which I think is a really good it's a really good thing you can turn to if and when you need it. So sizes for the pegs, I don't really have a particular length. I mean, to be honest, I've never really measured any of them. I just kind of just make them, if it looks right. But I'm kind of guessing maybe somewhere in the region of about maybe 9 inches or so, kind of 10 inches, somewhere like that. And obviously all my dog holes are 3/4 inch, so that's pretty much that's all I've got to go on with the sizes. So I think next, while I'm kind of talking about pegs, I'm going to go on about the dogs. So kind of the dogs are made in a similar way. I do like the wooden dogs. I did make a video on this, and obviously I've made a video on making pegs, and there will be a video getting released on making the wedges, as I mentioned earlier on. So the good thing about the wooden dogs, if anyone doesn't know, I have talked about this, is that kind of one of the reasons I started making them and using them was because I was using the Veritas bench pups, and every now and again I would hit the bench pup with the blade. So it's not a good combination. You're just going to damage your blade, or you're going to blunt it. Either way, it's not good. So if you're using wooden ones, you damage it. It's not really it's not like a big deal, is it? It's kind of, the blade's all right, your plane's all right. It's just the wooden dog's just a little bit damaged, which it can be repaired. So how I actually made these, it's super simple. Basically, you start out, you make a peg. The only difference with this peg is that you make it, when you're enough straight, so it'll fit all the way through the dog hole. With it being a nice fit, you don't want it too tight. At the same time, you don't want it too slack. It's just like literally just a nice fit. From there is what I've done. I actually cut like an angle into it, like a curve into it, if you like. I cannot remember the sort of angle. I don't even think I measured the angle. I just eyed it in. Obviously, if you want to check the video out, there's a video on me YouTube channel. Just have a look through the YouTube channel. You'll find it easy enough. Once I cut that slit, or that curve rather, I just got a sliver of some veneer. Put the veneer in, and obviously when you do that, it acts kind of the section you've just cut, it acts as like a bit of a spring. So when you put it into the dog hole, obviously with you putting that sliver of veneer in, it's actually pushing the curve apart. So obviously the curve section that's pushing away from the main body acts as a spring as you insert it into the dog hole. So it's very, very simple. It's a no-brainer, especially if you want to save some money, and if you're having issues the same as what I had when I was actually hitting the the Veritas Wonder Pups. I still own the Wonder Pups. They're great. I'll always have a pair of them, but I think it is better. My personal opinion, it is better to have the wooden ones because you're not going to you're not going to damage anything. So that's just my opinion on it anyway. What I will say with the dogs is make them longer than you think you actually need to make them. In fact, make them quite a lot longer. The point being here is that you will probably damage the head of the dog. So when you do damage it, I don't know how many times you're going to be able to do this. You might only be able to do this once, probably twice at the most, but you will be able to cut the head off and resaw the head. So that's kind of going to be a good thing. So instead of having to make the whole dog again, you just have to basically correct it, if you like, just fix the damage rather than making the whole thing, which I probably will be able to do with mine, because I did make them like a little bit bigger, but not by a great deal. But obviously the more I'm using it, and obviously this idea popped into my head, and it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Wedges. So I've just obviously made some wedges. I had some beech lying around, and it's the first time I've kind of made wedges with beech. I have actually got a little bit of the beech left, so I'm kind of wondering if I'm going to have enough to be able to make some pegs, which I really want to try out, because I think beech is going to be a bit harder than oak. But I do also have some ash as well. While I'm on the subject, for all of these accessories, the bench dogs, the pegs, and obviously the wedges, material wise, I think it's going to be good if you go for something like oak, ash or beech, something like that. I think, knowing what I know now and messing around with stuff, I think probably oak would probably be my last choice, although ironically it's probably going to be the thing that I make it with first time, if you understand that. It sounds a bit contradictory, but the reason being because I've always got a lot of oak lying around where the other stuff I haven't. But I think ash is going to be tougher, and I think beech is going to be tougher than that. Obviously the closer grained as well, they are pretty tough. So I personally, if you've got it, I think I would go with one or the other, either beech or ash, rather than oak. But oak will get you, it'll do the job, and it has done the job for many years for me. So back to the wedges. As I said, I made a wedge with some beech. So the thing with the wedges, I've kind of been making wedges at approximately 6 degrees. I have made ones at steeper degrees. I can't quite remember what the degree of it was. When I first started messing around with them, I think I made wedges well, 15 degrees, something like that. It might have been somewhere around 15 degrees, I don't know. But is what you'll find if you are messing around with the degrees, or someone that doesn't really know, about wedges. The greater the wedge or the greater the degree, the more chance or the easier it is for that peg to come out or to wiggle out. And obviously the steeper it is, the harder it is to get out, and the more chance it has of staying in place. I don't think there's no kind of, like lengthwise, I kind of don't think there's no like kind of set size you should have. Just for wedges in general, there's not. What I will say is that you should probably have a mixture. Some from anywhere from maybe 5-inch up to maybe 9-10 inch. They do come in handy. You should have a mixture. You should also have a mixture of different thicknesses. So, if you've got your wedges at 6 degrees, obviously if you make one massive wedge, one long wedge, you could maybe cut that up into 3 sections, but obviously the bottom half is going to be really thin at the top. And then your next section, what you would cut, it's going to be a little bit thicker at the top portion of the wedge, and obviously the last wedge you cut, it's going to be really thick at the end. So as I said, that would definitely be something I would recommend. Also with the widths, kind of 2 inches. If you make a wedge at 2 inch, that's really good, because there's more material on material, and obviously causes more friction when things try to move. So if you want something to go in there and something to stay put, make it wider, obviously, and make it 6 degrees. If you're making shorter than that, maybe, I don't know, maybe like an inch and a quarter, I say, that will have a good hold of material, but it is easier for you to get out. So, as I said, it depends what your work is, and I would advise on different lengths and different widths of wedges. Another thing, again, this might be common sense to a lot of people, some people may not know, when you are making wedges, make sure you chamfer all the edges. This is not just to make it look pretty. This is kind of to help to preserve the wedge for as long as possible, because if you've got sharp edges, for a start, they can cut you, but even if they're not sharp, you will probably knock them off. When you hammer on them, they will they will split, fracture, and it's just that's how it works. It's kind of the same as chair legs or table legs. They should always be chamfered, and that helps to prevent from the legs from splitting, fracturing, when they're getting dragged along the floor, so on and so forth. The only difference is when you're doing this with a mallet, you're not actually dragging it, you're actually hitting it with a mallet or a hammer, whichever you use. So it is a good practice to do that. So going on to the hold fast kind of system, what I've been messing around with, I've had quite a lot of interest in that for obvious reasons. What I discovered the other day, and I did actually mention this in the video, which it should be released, I think, in the next week or something, so keep an eye out for it. Basically, the longer you make the wedge, or all the longer the wedges that you use for the hold fast, it's got a great deal of leverage. Obviously, the longer it is, the more leverage it has. So the more leverage it has, it's kind of the more power it has to basically snap the pegs, which I found out the other day. Basically, I snapped 2 of the pegs. One of them was a brand new peg I made, and the other one was one of my old pegs. So it made sense once I kind of looked like I took a step back, I looked at it, give me brain a second to fire up. It was like, yeah, it makes perfect sense. If you just think about leverage, if you've got a car tire to use, you wouldn't use a little spanner, you'd use a long handle spanner, because obviously that gives you the leverage, so you're able to leverage it and crack the nut. Basically, it's kind of the similar principle with the wedge and the peg. So obviously, the longer it is, yeah, you're going to get better, like, holding pressure, if you like, but you're also putting a lot of pressure on the peg to the point where it's actually going to snap. So would it have been different if it was beech or if it was ash? It probably would have, but I'm still inclined to think that it probably would have snapped it, you know, whenever, you know, kind of in the future. So it's kind of one of them, you know. I would recommend, you know, you kind of keep it on the shorter side. I can't quite remember the sizes I recommend, but I did kind of recommend a size on the video. So again, when the video comes out, if you're interested, check the video out, and I did kind of compare the sizes. But to be honest, it's probably just going to be a little bit of experimentation. Same with myself. Once I get back home, I think I'm probably going to make a few more wedges, a few more pegs, different sizes and length, and, you know, and have a go, like, a mess around with this wooden holdfast carry on malarkey. So from the holdfasts, moving over to the tail fast, as I've started calling it. So that's kind of like a tail vise like locking system, although it's not a vise. So basically with this was kind of like, this was a mistake, and basically what I had done, I'd used a very thin wedge, and I've drilled a hole in it, and then I've tried to use it as a holdfast. Totally didn't think about it, but obviously as soon as I put it on the peg, and then I pushed it down, and then obviously the peg just like was able to flip like straight up, and I thought that's not right, you know. It's kind of what happened there. Again, me brain fired up, and it's like, oh yeah, there's not enough meat at the end. So basically, when you're using these, you do need to have a bit of meat at the fatter side of the wedge. Again, you'll see what I mean when I'm explaining this on the video. It makes perfect sense. So obviously when I used the thin one, it was a pure mistake, but it was a mistake with a bit of a silver lining. So I quickly figured out, hey, I wonder if that'll work for, like, you know, using it as a kind of a tail vise sort of thing, and it does. So with this, obviously, I think you are going to be better using like a shorter wedge, and obviously a thinner wedge, obviously, so this allows for the movement. You still do have to drill it at an angle. I think like anywhere from maybe like 80 to 75 degrees is going to be fine. So it's, you know, it's kind of one of them. You just might need to experiment with it. So when you're putting the wedge onto the peg, you still want it pointing down in the same fashion as kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for here, as the wooden holdfast. So you do, you know, the wedge does still want to be pointing down. If you have the wedge the other way around, so the angle's naturally wanting to point up, is what happens when you actually start wedging it in. And again, you'll see on the video, it wants to lift the workpiece up, and obviously you don't want the workpiece lifting up. So that's something you might want to you know, kind of check out or experiment with. So I think that's pretty much it. Kind of a few of the things I've went over there. I think, like, if you kind of have a think about all these things, I think you'll not go far wrong with them. So yeah, I think that's it. So again, a massive thank you to everyone that's been commenting, following us, so on and so forth, to everyone of the past as well and present, and to everyone that's going now. So massive thank you, really appreciate it. A bit of a short one today, guys, but yeah, I think I've ravened on enough today. So thanks very much, guys, and until the next time, I shall speak to you later.